Howdy, howdy. Devil here, and welcome to my video where I am going to ask for your help. Very, very specifically, this is a call to expand the technical analysis on this channel. I'm specifically looking for just your thoughts, ideas, and concepts in terms of technical analysis, and I want to be more specific so that you can understand what I'm looking for. I do know on this channel there are a lot of very technical people. I am an engineer myself. I know there are other engineers, people in IT, people who do statistical analysis for a living, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts towards a singular goal that I have, and that is really expanding my technical analysis to look at dwarf versus a multiplayer matchups, to really look at expanding that. And I had a great comment which I thought was fantastic, and the comment used this term slot efficiency for describing a unit in the Skaven lineup, which are the Doom Flayers. Really, they do have that slot efficiency because you have to plan for them if you're facing them. So they have a lot of utility or capability, or their OP, or however you want to call it. But the couple things that we have to look in multiplayer, and then I'll get to a better explanation of this for those people that want to keep watching and thinking about these terms and look at what the idea is I just built a quick army here to show some of the concepts. Now, if you were to bring this army as the Dawi, it's extremely expensive. It only takes 8 slots. Even though each unit might be pretty strong, you would get crushed. I don't know if there's an army it'd be interesting to watch, but because you would have so many rear charge bonuses and other kinds of things, you're gonna really struggle with a build like this in general. And you can even have a hyper small build like this one with the Lizardmen, where you only have 5 units that take up your 12,400 gold, and that becomes even less useful. And we know from tournament play, and that's really been where this is expanded, is in general, if you can use all 20 slots, a lot of builds do that. A lot of builds go as wide as possible, and I would say the limit is about 15. If you have a build with less than 15 slots, it better have a very good idea to it, or else it's going to really start to lose some of its capability as an army. So that 15 to 20 is really where the sweet spot for tournaments tends to be, and I think there's a reason for that, and a lot of it is a unit, even though this unit is completely awesome, it can't be in 2 places at once. And that's sort of the problem. And then once you allow weak units to get massive rear charge bonuses, and which is a huge bonus to their stats and a huge negative bonus to your morale, it really does start to make a difference fast. That's why we'll load here just a 20 stack, a base 20 stack, which is now it's actually 50 gold because these guys got a little more expensive. But the idea being that you fill all 20 slots, you have in this base stack, a couple runesmiths, and they have the Rune of Wrath and Rune, and they have the Hammer of Carrick draws, so they can really tie down something that's powerful. You have some units on the edges, you have some range power, you have some armor piercing range, you have some debuffing with the burnt leadership, you do have some slow and the Dragonback Slayers, and you have some strong outside support with the Longbeards with their stuff. So this is sort of a balanced army, and something that if I don't know what to take, this is something that I might build and take. And this is why I had this sort of an all-purpose 20 stack moniker on it, because it makes use of all the slots, and it has a lot of different capabilities and flexibilities. So I'm going to go over the spreadsheet where I've sort of defined these terms, and really the expanding technical analysis that I'm after is really, this video is a call for thoughts, concepts, and ideas. And the end goal is I want an in-depth Dawi multiplayer army building guide per faction with details including expected opposition. So that's my goal, is I want to build a proper Dawi guide, and I'm looking at how to evaluate things better. And that's why I'm asking for ideas and your thoughts and things maybe you've seen or ideas you might have rolling around. Now, in the in the comments, I'm asking people to bring their thoughts, not to have that conversation on their ideas. I don't want someone to say something and someone else say, no, that's not a good idea for this reason. I really don't want that. If you make a comment, I want you to comment on your own thinking and expand on your own thinking so that everyone has a chance to really say what they want to say, and it's not going to be an argument. It's a call for thoughts, ideas, and concepts, not a call for evaluating these ideas right away. So, if you have an idea that could help do this in a better way, I want to hear it in the comments. And I know there are lots of very technical people, and there are some people that are not very technical that might have good intuition as to what's important in builds. And I really want to hear from you too. And, hopefully this could be a model for other analysis in the future for other people in other channels. I would love to see people do this sort of analysis for Empire or Lizardman or Skaven or whatnot. I think as far as I've ever seen, this is the only channel that does in-depth analysis on one faction only. But, the idea, I want it to be there. And really, I prefer, instead of a broad analysis on everything, I prefer getting more in-depth on a fewer things. And that's why I like just analyzing the Dawi and the dwarfs. So I really want to know how to evaluate, or thoughts on how to evaluate, or what to evaluate. There are other things that belong in here, but in context versus other factions, how are we going to evaluate a unit's capability or that type of thing versus other factions? How do we evaluate risk versus reward? This idea that a unit or a build, specifically a unit some units have high risk reward factors, like Giant Slayers. They are a high risk reward unit in every case scenario, because if you get them on the right unit, they absolutely obliterate them and they can win games for you. But if you let them get picked off by, chameleon skinks or peasant archers or these types of things, or Skaven slave slingers, it is a huge detriment to your army. Terrain and map considerations, for example, there are some units that really matter here, like organ guns need a flap map. If you have a map with lots of terrain, things like grudge throwers and flame cannons have a lot more utility, because a flame cannon only has 250 range, say, but it has a very high arc of fire, so it becomes more valuable. Flexible versus focused. It's almost like risk versus reward, but there's sort of a flexibility versus a very focused sort of unit and builds. How to evaluate the flexibility and furthermore the total utility of a unit in this idea. And again, I'm not putting this very succinctly because it's not clear in my mind how to do this. I'm just putting out my own ideas and my own call for thoughts, concepts, and ideas. And I really look at this idea of cost per slot or slot utilization. We have 12,400 gold. We have 20 slots. Essentially, you have 620 gold per slot if we want to optimize using all 20 slots. Now, not that we absolutely have to. You can get down to sort of 15 slots and still have a very good army. And there are very few, but some armies that are short of that 15 slot mark that are pretty strong and competitive. But, they have very clear ideas to them in a very clear matchup role. And it becomes harder. But for the Dawi, it's not going to happen, I don't think. In general, like if you're below that 15 mark, you got to have a good reason for it, I think. And so really, how do we evaluate all these things in terms of the units, in terms of the faction they're facing, the risk reward, the terrain and map considerations is something else. Really, you get to something like a slot efficiency. And I love that idea, and it is really sort of an MMO-esque concept. In MMO, there was a YouTuber I watched. It was called Best in Slot, where you look at your equipment slots and you want the very best piece of equipment in each slot, and you want it to all go towards a specific purpose. And how do you evaluate that? Slot efficiency is more of a broader term, but I really like the concept. It's easy to understand that idea. And once we get sort of a slot efficiency, this is per faction, per map style, really, then we can look at creating an in-depth Dawi multiplayer army building guide, which I want to get to. And when you get army, like one of the things that with evaluating total builds is really hard because it's hard to get evenly matched players. I can have the best build I can possibly build. If I'm facing Turin, I'm going to get crushed. That's just the way it is. If I'm fighting Lotus Moon, I'm not going to win that, folks. No matter how good the build is, no matter how crappy his build is, those things are a bit harder to evaluate, but we can evaluate from a technical analysis point some of these ideas. And, someone putting together their army is still going to have to use some ideas. But what I would like to do, for example, when I get to this point, is put all the dwarf units and all the opposition units and look at a sort of a broad sort of 5-point, some sort of broad 5-point-ish evaluation saying, okay, dwarf warriors, are they useful in this matchup? From the standpoint of yes, no, and the standpoint of how many. So maybe a unit is a one-off pick in the matchup and it's going to be generally good, but it really drops off after that. And, furthermore, you would look at the opposition and see the kind of armies. And in the final, you would make sort of a build. This is what I would make, sort of a build for the Dawi and a build I would expect. And then over time, I could keep on its own list different builds and for the concept. So when you look at builds, some of the builds that I do are not always optimum. And if I look at my own builds, this is just a sort of build for everything. But if I'm looking at, say, a build versus chaos, now Grombrindle is probably not the best lord to have in there. But I want to have, when I play and I do any kind of games, I want to show off all the Dawi lords, and I've always wanted to do that. So I have, in my builds, I have Thorgrim, Ungrim, Grombrindle, the Rune Lord, Belegar, and I have a basic lord. I can't remember which build my basic lord is in. Maybe he's Bretonnia, I don't know. Yep, there's Bretonnia. So my basic lord is in the Bretonian build, not the optimum lord for this build. But he's there, and really I'm looking at concepts that I like, and this might not be the optimum lord or the optimum build. It's just a concept. So when we look at how I would like to build this out in depth, I would really like to be a reference guide for people coming to Dwarf multiplayer, because people are going to keep coming to Dwarf multiplayer for 10 years. I mean, this is not going away anytime soon. Total War Warhammer is going to be around for a very long time. There's going to be another Total War Warhammer. There's Total War Warhammer 3 is coming. This game is going to be alive for the next 10 years in multiplayer, and for the next 5 years for sure. And I want to build a guide that can change over time and is a reference point that maybe has a couple of example builds, like an all-around flexible build, a focused build against X, and maybe 2 or 3 types of builds, which I've seen. I think Gobble King and Janet did something like that. Ninja Hund might have done something like that. But I really want to expand on that and be hyper focused on the Dawi, so that it's sort of a reference guide and something that can be added to over time. With if I look at a sort of forum I like, it's the Hearthstone forum for types of card builds. When you're looking at what you're playing, where you could have a few main builds, and then people could submit other builds with their ideas, and we could have a general reference point for people who are new to the Dawi, who want ideas, or who get, because sometimes you get out of a match and you just got crushed and you want to know, what can I do better against that matchup? They would come here, see a bunch of builds, and maybe they find 6 builds, 3 main ones, 3 subscriber submitted builds, and they're like, this build looks really good, and they try it and it's fantastic. That's sort of the thing that I want, is to make a true place for Dwarf players and multiplayer to come and reference concepts and ideas. And if they want to get into the weeds and get into the analysis and look at all the testing, they can do that too. If they just want a reference point for some builds with their ideas, they can come and see that. So this is a call for thoughts, concepts, and ideas on technical analysis with a goal to creating a better in-depth Dawi multiplayer army building guide, which will be per faction with the details of the expected opposition. So really here I have like context versus faction, risk versus reward, terrain and map considerations, flexible versus focus, total utility, cost per slot. And I have sort of tried to do this. I've looked at general combat analysis, essential units, where they're looking at the best dwarf units altogether, and then that lizard man analysis, but I've never found sort of the right mix where I know this is all very time consuming kind of stuff, but this is something I love doing, so it doesn't feel like it's time consuming to me personally. But anyways, I'd like to hear from you what your thoughts and ideas are, and I would like people to really just have their own comment space in this video. I really do not want any commentary on other people's ideas, because this is not the point. The point of this is to get out a bunch of ideas, good, bad, or ugly, and put them all in one place, and then to look at them over time. And that's sort of the way you get lots of ideas fast, is you just sort of do a brain dump and say, here are some ideas on technical analysis, on evaluation, on looking at slot efficiency, or evaluating builds or combinations or these type of things, just like a brain dump, and you put it all down. Even if you think yourself it's not that great of an idea, all it has to be is an idea, and you put that down, a concept or a thought, and you put a whole bunch of them down fast, and then you come back and start looking at which ones start to make the most sense in the context of the end goal. Even if it, and that what you'll find is, even though it's like, if you do creative things like creative endeavors like this do benefit a lot from open input, where you put whatever you think, doesn't have to be right, wrong, or other. It's like a brain dump, and everyone does their own thing. And then in the long term, you're going to find a few little gems in there that maybe you didn't think it was that important to mention. You mention it, someone else is like, oh, that really makes sense in this context, and they can put that in their own little thread in the comments. I really only want you to comment on top of your own thread. I might comment back and forth, but I'd like people to have their own space in this thread for people who want to add to any kind of analysis. And it can be just things that you would like to see, things that you think are important, or things that your intuition are telling you, or a way of gathering data, maybe that sort of thing. I would just really like to hear from you guys on really helping to expand technical analysis, and I would love a brain dump in these comments. Put what you think down. It's your own space. We comment only on your own space. Don't comment on anybody else's, because I really want it to be a true brain dump where you just dump your thoughts and ideas in there and concepts, and we evaluate them later. I don't want any sort of back and forth. It's like, I don't want any real arguments or anything like that in the comments. I want people to sort of just do a brain dump. And then that's the best way to get the most possible ideas in the shortest amount of time. And then I can work on expanding my technical analysis. I know I don't know how fast this will go. If I've been actually extremely busy in the last 3 months, and I haven't been able to do a whole lot of videos, but this is a high interest for me, and I love that term, slot efficiency. I just love it. And this is sort of something I've always been looking at ever since my very first video, combat analysis, and then that essential units series and stuff like that. And I want to expand this to be more useful and have that multi-layer where, hey, if you want to just come to one of these videos and find a dwarf build, and it takes you 15 seconds and you leave and never come back, happy day. You can do what you need. If you want to come and stay and look at how the builds were developed, perfect. If you want to stay even longer and get really into the deep part of the analysis and really the statistics and how the data was developed and the testing and stuff, hey, that's mostly for the people that are already here. I get it, but maybe some people will come and they'll be like, hey, this is kind of interesting. Highly doubt it, but I want to allow that really quick reference where you can come, find an army, and just pick it and use it, and spend 15 seconds on a video, or I don't know, maybe I'll find a place to post some of these so they're really fast and easy to reference, and they could be changed over time. And I just want to be able to be a source for dwarf data on multiple levels, so that people can come get their quick 15-second fix on how to build a dwarf army to fight against the greenskins. And they pick it up and they go play with it, and they enjoy it or they don't enjoy it, or hopefully it works very well for them, and they enjoy the Dawi. Really, this is kind of like the concept of the first hits free concept. You come in, hopefully someone would come in and grab one of these armies and play them, like, wow, that was really good. Why does that Dawi army work? And then they can come around and be around all us us math and technical analysis and engineering and IT and general nerd types, because the world can always use more nerds. That's what I believe. So, anyways, looking forward to hearing from you down below. I really, really am. And anything, again, even if you want to say hi, I always love comments. No matter what they are, I just love comments. And one comment, I was like, someone just came in. I can never remember names. My memory is so bad. But I was talking about spreadsheets in the video, and someone came into the comments and says, "Ooh, more spreadsheets. Let me turn off the lights, sit down on my couch, and get comfortable." I just laughed and laughed and laughed. So all comments are welcome, and I do really want to be this comment section in this video specifically to be a brain dump. Really, let's get some ideas generated and some thoughts on technical analysis and things that are worth evaluating and ways to evaluate them in terms of the unit packages and ultimately builds versus other factions. So anyways, hope you found that interesting, and I will see you soon.